We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And you're actually seeing us today because we are covering the first 4 episodes of Wonder Man. So we thought, why not do it as a video episode? Side note, next episode covering 5 through 8, also going to be video. So we're really going to be in your face. But that's okay because Wonder Man is out, and I'm going to speak for myself. I'm really liking it so far. I'm actually really, we had to stop after 4, and I'm really excited to stop recording so I can go in my bed and watch 5 through 8 and finish the series. But I'm going to stop rattling off random facts, and I'm going to turn it over to Katie because we have 4 episodes to cover. So all up to you, sister.
I also am enjoying it so far. I guess let the record show. We have only watched 1 through 4 when recording this for the sole purpose of only reacting to episodes 1 through 4. And then our next episode, which we're going to be recording tomorrow, you guys are going to see coming out back to back. But those will be 5 through 8. We'll have the whole show underneath our belt and we'll be good. But this is for you guys. So we're not going ahead and skipping ahead and, whatever. In the meantime,
and also confusing what happens in different halves because my brain doesn't separate episodes well. So
correct.
No.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much that's it for us. But also, you're welcome because we are holding ourselves back from watching the show. We couldn't binge it because we had to stop at 4. So keeping that in mind as we move forward, I have been enjoying this show. I have to say, I wouldn't say concerns, but I had certain things that in the predictions I kind of brought up, and I was like, I'm a little weary about, like, are we going to figure out what his origin is? Are they going to go into that? How is that going to be set up? I think I also mentioned there was another thing that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but there was another concern I had that maybe it'll come back to me that I was like, I think it was like just about jumping into the story in general and like exposition versus just like being in the show and like just, hey, you dropped me in at this like random dude and we're just learning as we go. And I think honestly, I could say at least in the first 4 episodes, I feel like they've answered those concerns by being like, no, here you go. And also one-liner, he's always had them. And I'm like, cool. Thank you. That's all I needed.
Yeah, it's actually super interesting because I found myself the first maybe episode and a half being like, okay, when are we going to get into the story? Because I felt like it was so divorced. And I knew this going in, but I think like it's different to like conceptualize it and then to actually see it in execution of the idea of like, it is very firmly in the MCU, and you can tell. I mean, there was a Rogers the Musical poster. So like we are definitely firmly in there, but he is not ensconced in everything that is happening, right? He himself and a lot of the story that's being told is so separate from the Avengers and everything that, surrounds them. And the first episode and a half, because I was going into it with this mindset of like MCU, 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 I was like, I liked it, but I was like, all right, I'm ready for things to like get moving here.
Yeah.
But then I was like, definitely after episode 2, I kind of sat myself down and I was like, girl, you knew what this was going to be. Like, recalibrate the expectations because you're probably missing a really good show. And I think once I was able to kind of be like, it's in the MCU, but that's not the driving factor here. Just watch it the way you would watch any other show. Then I was like really getting into it. And I also think it really found its stride by episodes 3 and 4. Like 1 and 2, to your point, we don't get a ton of exposition, but we're getting a lot of setup, right? We're
Yeah.
learning about Simon, kind of where he is. We're seeing him go on this audition for Wonder Man. Trevor enters the picture. We understand how Trevor got to where he is. All those things. Those are basically, for the most part, set up in episodes 1 and 2. Then by 3, 4, we'll talk about separately. But by 3, you are really like very much the story is moving forward. And I was like, oh, now I'm really here. So I liked all of it, but I think it was, for me, it was just about like that mental calibration of like, remember, this isn't a slap you in the face MCU show. This is a TV show that happens to be set in the world of the MCU. And for anybody who like is maybe like struggling with that as well, and like you haven't watched all of the episodes and maybe you're struggling with 1 through 4, just like that helped me. So I hope it helps you because it's a really good show.
Yeah, I have to say I didn't feel that same concern. I actually felt in episode 1, it got me very early on. And I was like, cool, we're good. I'm in this. Like, I'm intrigued by just kind of, again, I felt very much like I was dropped into this person's life and I'm just suddenly learning about them. And it very much gives, like, if you guys have ever watched Modern Family or The Office or any shows like that where, like, you're not really setting up these characters per se, more than suddenly you're like, I'm just living a life with them, and like you're just going about their day.
Yeah.
And that's what it kind of gave, though. It very much gave that idea of like, okay, the camera just happened to turn on now, and now we're seeing all of this happening. And I really enjoyed that. I do have to say, I struggled a little bit with episode 2, pacing wise. It felt like the longest episode. Like I definitely felt like I was like, okay, I'm struggling a little bit here because I think it is trying to add so much to it. But I also think it's like we went into this show talking a lot about it being meta.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about like from like a mind screwy whatever, but like it very much is kind of taking away some of these walls that we're seeing of like the acting world and like being in all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a Marvel show about essentially a show. Like it's just like it's kind of very trippy, right?
Yeah.
But I do have to say, like, I think that whole aspect has been very interesting. I will say I was a little like pacing wise, the main thread of like it all being about Wonder Man and obviously like him eventually being Wonder Man, which is what I assume is gonna happen. I feel like that's a really easy thing for me to guess.
Yeah, feels like a safe prediction.
I feel like I can infer that from what I've gotten so far. But like I think that main thread I do feel like gets a little lost.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
That's probably my only concern, because I remember by the end of episode 3 when he finds out he gets the call back and I'm like, oh my God, that just happened.
And we're back.
yeah. I was like, oh yeah, we're doing that again. I forgot that was like the main point of this show. So I will say there's a little bit of that for me with just like general pacing. Some things are working really well. And as a show, like I'm like moving with it. I think like some of that underlying storyline that really probably shouldn't be underlined, like shouldn't be underneath everything, is falling to the wayside, and then it gets brought up randomly. So I think there I'm a little like thrown off. But a lot of times too, when we're reacting episode by episode, which we've been doing on our socials, or in this case, now we're also watching one half, going back to watch the other half. Sometimes these shows are just better binged. Like they just work better as one long show.
Yeah, because you can kind of like flow through it and you're not like feeling, it's like kind of when you go episode by episode, it'll be like I mean, episode 4 is like a great example of this, and I'm really glad they didn't do a weekly release for episode 4 because I could already hear the
I had the
rants
same
that we
thought.
would have had if that was a weekly release. So we'll table that for a second, but I definitely want to dissect episode 4.
Yes.
But I feel like, even though I was able to binge after 2, I feel like there's a lot of setup in 2 that's probably going to pay off in the back half that I
Yeah.
feel like if we had been able to say like go all the way 1 through 8, 2 might not have felt quite so long. I think it is 2 that was like that for me. So I'm trying to remember like where one episode ends and another begins, which is also why we didn't do 8 episodes because my brain does not divide episodes after like
Yeah.
5 minutes after I've finished it. But I feel like then you're kind of viewing it as like one movie, and it's kind of
Yes.
like, okay, like I don't have to wait for the payoff. Whereas like now we had to wait the 24 hours or give or take until we're able to finish. But yeah, overall, I think it's been really good. I like I said in my opening, like I genuinely am really excited to finish the series. All day I've been online, which was maybe a mistake, like dodging spoilers here and there, like trying to like, oh no, I forgot that I haven't finished it. And also I'm just like kind of annoyed that people are putting spoilers for the whole series less than 24 hours after it premiered, like in the middle of a week, folks. Like people do things.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit like playing dodgeball, but also has spurred me to be like, I have to finish this series before I get like something major spoiled, because I've had like maybe small details where I'm like, I can't tell if that's a spoiler yet, but I'm gonna scroll really fast just in case. But I'm like so afraid a bomb is gonna get dropped on my timeline, and I'm gonna be like, oh no, the whole series has been ruined.
Honestly, that's so funny to me because I've also very clearly been online. But guys, I've been online because I'm the one posting all of our reactions. So I've been like constantly between TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, like Threads. I'm going back and forth through all of them to make sure we're putting stuff up and like answering comments that you guys are leaving, things like that. But the irony is I've seen nothing about this show online, even though I'm on every forum right now that is going to be talking about it.
Threads has been so dangerous for me today.
Obviously, that's like when we used to go on Twitter after Loki. Like, you can't do it.
I know, but see, here's the thing. I don't go on it for the Wonder Man stuff. I go on it because now you get the little Threads line on Instagram, and they always get me with heated rivalry. And then I'm like, heated rivalry. And I keep scrolling, and then I'm like, no, Wonder Man.
So you don't have self-control.
No. Have you met me?
I mean, yes, but out of the two of us, I thought you had a little bit more than I did.
Oh, no, I'm a social media addict. I really just like once I start, I can't stop. That's why there are like guardrails on some of my platforms.
No, that
It's
is
pretty
fair.
bad.
I also have guardrails on mine as well, so I understand. No, I want to get into some of the details of this show because like I said, I've been enjoying it, but I also think it's going a different direction than every other show we've gone so far.
Yeah.
And I want to first talk about what I think has been working so well, which is, and we went into the show knowing this, but watching it has really brought it to fruition. Having two protagonists.
Yeah.
And essentially telling the story of Simon, but we're really Trevor. We're really witnessing it through Trevor's eyes. And then we have like weird little backstories or like side quests, if you will, where we're like with Simon, we see things that he's doing. But like, I couldn't tell you where Simon is at mentally. I couldn't tell you any inner thoughts I feel like he's having, versus with Trevor, I feel like while he's maybe not outwardly sharing them, I know what that man is thinking at all times.
Face is so expressive.
Yes.
That it's like it might as well be glass, and I feel like I am reading the synapses of his brain, which is amazing. Like that's so good.
100%.
It's interesting you say that because I definitely agree with you that we're getting the two protagonists, and that was something that I actually don't know if this video is up yet at the time of this recording, but by the time you're watching this video, it definitely will be. My episode 3 reaction, I actually pointed out like that episode is completely from the perspective of Trevor, right?
Yeah.
You start with him getting squeezed again at the DODC office because Agent Cleary is also getting squeezed. And then you continue on, seeing Simon, his interaction with his family through Trevor's perspective, which, by the way, a masterclass in building empathy. Like the way that conversation happens between Trevor and Simon's mom, where she talks about how he was always lonely growing up. And obviously, we can infer that that's because he had these superpowers that he was trying to hide.
Yeah.
And, Trevor is understanding this because he now knows that he has superpowers, even though Simon doesn't know that he knows. Yeah, because he doesn't do that until the counter later. So Simon doesn't know he knows, but he knows. And
Yeah.
so he's like thinking about how this has affected Simon his whole life. And I just think then to cap that episode off with Trevor, destroying the chip of all the information is just such a beautiful like narrative storytelling within that episode itself.
Yeah.
But I don't think that necessarily every episode is solely from Trevor's perspective, because I actually
I
do
agree.
think we do get pieces of Simon's inner thoughts, his inner monologues, especially like when you open it and he's on the set of American Horror Story and he's overthinking, when you're seeing him go into the auditions and things, like you see this just guy who's so anxious. And what I think is really cool about the way they portray him is he's so naturally talented. Like everybody keeps emphasizing, like, you're so talented, the way you come across on the tapes is so good, like you have the right instincts. But then where he gets himself into trouble is he overthinks it, and he really doesn't need to do those things. And so I think it's such a good, they do a good job of kind of between the two being like, we're gonna follow Simon's evolution in his story, but then we're also gonna do the same for Trevor, but then also be able to learn more about Simon through Trevor's perspective. And I just think the way that they have split that is just so, like, from a storytelling perspective, so well done and so engaging.
Yeah. Well, I also think it leaves Simon ominous is not particularly the word I want to use, but it kind of leaves him mysterious. It leaves him as this character that, yes, while I do think we're seeing some of this overthinking, this anxiousness, all of that stuff that we're seeing, even from the get-go on the set of American Horror Story and all that stuff.
Also, shout out to that Ashley Greene cameo. That brought me so much joy.
Well, it was so funny because I recognized her at the exact same time he went, loved you in Twilight. And I was like, what is going on right now?
The moment she showed up on screen, like 12-year-old me was activated. I was like, oh, Alice is here.
No, I literally was like, what is going on? I don't like what? Yes. But I do think, they do show that. But I think it also leaves him to be this. And I think we get a lot of that from episode 3. But through Trevor and through Trevor talking to his family about, he's been very quiet. He's always been very lonely. He's kept to himself, all of this stuff. And that's when he later shares, I don't know where these abilities came from. I don't know what happened. I just have them. And to what you said, like, he's been keeping himself alone because he doesn't want to have outbursts and he doesn't want to hurt people around him. And so he just keeps himself by himself. And I think, in doing so, I think it does leave him as this very interesting character because while he is our protagonist, we know very little about him from actually his perspective of himself. We don't know anything. I mean, even we see the scene in episode 1 where his girlfriend's leaving him and she's like, you don't open up, you don't talk to me, like you keep me out and I can't continue to be with you because of that. And like, we're almost the girlfriend at this point. We're very much cut out of his inner psyche truly. Like we do see like when he's going into auditions and things like that, but like otherwise we haven't even begun to touch into the surface of what's it like having these powers truly? Like what goes through his mind every day outside of being an actor? What is driving him?
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it because I feel like with Simon, we know about him what he wants us to know. And so it's like he, almost as the audience, he's curating the version of him that we're seeing, even though he obviously doesn't know that he's in a TV show, like whatever. Right. But like still like that, the storytelling that's being told about him or the exposition we're getting, even the way he talks about himself and things like that, like none of that, even when he's alone, none of that is the deep inner thoughts, feelings that he has.
Yeah.
that he has almost shoved so far down, he's like not even able to acknowledge to himself. And that's why I think, like, we were joking about how Trevor's so expressive and like he's basically like transparent. But I think Trevor's really good for him because he does kind of wear his heart on his sleeve. And like you can always tell what Trevor is thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, with Simon, it's the exact opposite. And I think having that foil not only can, you know, show Simon what it's like to be more open with people, but also in so many ways, I think Trevor is giving him permission to at least try that with someone in a way that he hasn't before. I mean, I was just like so heartbroken when his mom was like, he's never had a friend before. I was like, this man is
I
like in
know.
his like late 20s, early 30s. That broke my heart. And you can see it in Trevor's very expressive face, just the way the guilt that he's feeling for what he's doing in that moment, the way his heart is sinking, the way I think in a lot of ways Trevor feels the same. Like Trevor is a much more outgoing person, but I think a lot of things changed for him after the Mandarin and that job that
Yeah.
he took. And that's why that just keeps getting brought up all the time because I think, you know, he has all these stories about early in his career and the people he knew and the things he was doing, but a lot of that stops after the Mandarin. And I think it just made him a pariah in a lot of ways because of what he was portraying and what he had done and the fact that he, you know, went to jail and all these things. And so I think for Simon to have a friend who can understand that loneliness, I think is really important, even though it's for very different reasons. And that's why I think, like, I love them so much as a friend duo. They warm my heart.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. I think they do relate in a in a weird way to each other and in different ways to each other, but it makes
Yeah.
sense for both of them. And I have to say, I didn't expect Trevor to have a change of heart so quickly, and not because he has anything against Simon. And obviously, when he even first signed up for this, he was like only supposed to do the bare minimum. And now, because we
Yeah.
see that the DODC is really trying to crack down because pretty much they're going to get it handed to them if they don't. And now
Yeah.
it's everybody else's problem, which is like the government. Makes sense. But you know, now that we're seeing this, and he's kind of pretty much being blackmailed at this point.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
literally like he did what he was asked to do, and now it's just going way above and beyond what, you know, he was actually initially signed up on to do. And you know, I don't even remember the I should know the officer or the
Agent
agent's name.
Cleary.
Okay, I was gonna say Cleary, but I couldn't remember for sure. I was like, I should know. This is like his 7th appearance. I feel
I
like
know.
I should know it by now.
He's a
But
real evil agent through line for a lot of projects.
he is. And you know, like he is definitely blackmailing Trevor pretty much to
Yeah.
get him to continue to help him so he doesn't lose his job pretty much. But you know, I didn't expect Trevor to kind of have that change of heart so quickly, mainly because not because Trevor I think is ever portrayed as an extremely selfish individual. I don't think he is. I just think, you know, what is the stake for him with this person
Yeah.
he only just met? I mean, they've only spent like what, maybe a week tops together. Like it's really the stakes aren't supposed to be there, but he can look at Simon and understand like this is just somebody who's just been trying to ride the radar and just stay underneath it
Yeah.
because he's always been different. And it's not his fault that a passion of his happens to be in a field that like technically he's not allowed to be in. And
Yeah.
and he can't change that he was born that way either. Like if that's the I mean, that's the assumption I'm making. I mean, we could find out in episodes 5 through 8 there was an accident or something that happened when he was younger, but to his knowledge he's pretty much always had these abilities. You know, it's nothing that he's ever he can't change it. It's not like he
Yeah.
had anything happen to him that caused it. And even when they do, 9 times out of 10 those are accidents. Like that's not their fault. So, I really appreciated early on seeing that Trevor's clearly on his side because I think it also in my mind sets up very clearly why he becomes Wonder Man after this because they come back for the callbacks. I my assumption is going to end up being it's between him and Trevor by the very end, and then Trevor gets arrested because he doesn't hold up his end of the deal. That's exactly how I like panned that out in my head. That I was like, not that I don't think Simon wouldn't have been worthy of it, but like by default ends up being Wonder Man because Trevor literally gets taken out of the running.
My guess, and I think I may have picked up on this in a trailer or two. Simon becomes Wonder Man, and the Trevor is the Barnaby to his Wonder Man, his right-hand man, the guy who saves him from the void and who brings him out of that dark place. Because, like, one, I do think it's hinted at in the trailer, so I don't want to act like, I'm just pulling that out of thin air. But two, I do think if I am going to go in and deeply analyze and, like, give you a reason beyond just what I believe I inferred from a trailer, when he gives that monologue in the first audition for Wonder Man, it's all about, I was in the void. I wasn't, he does this thing where he, like, motions to his body and he's like, I stopped having what makes a person a person. And I think that monologue is actually a metaphor for the way that the way that Simon's been living his life, because he has basically been forced to hide such an important part of himself. And even if he wants to minimize his powers, he's also been forced to basically hide from the world, right? Because of those powers. And so I actually think that and, like, obviously through that metaphor, he talks about how Barnaby was the one who brings him out, and then he has to go save Barnaby. So I actually think, yes, Trevor's going to get arrested, but I think Simon is going to get him out of custody, because it's going to be Barnaby saves Wonder Man saves Barnaby. And I think that's actually the narrative that we're going to follow through the remainder of the episodes.
Okay. I like that. I think these two, I'd like to see them remain a duo to some extent.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be, and not to get sacrilegious over here, guys, not to, like, go in a different direction, but I wouldn't be against it kind of being like the whole, like, Batman, and why am I blanking on his
Robin?
No. His butler.
Oh, Alfred?
Yes. No, not Robin. What? Obviously, I know it's Batman and Robin.
Well, you didn't remember Alfred, and Alfred's also pretty integral.
Listen, it's been a really long time since I've seen anything Batman related. Okay. I mean, Battinson came out, like, when did that come out? Like 4 years ago now already? Like, listen, it's been a long time. But yes, it's giving Batman and Alfred vibes, because obviously Trevor's not going to be out here saving the world. But, like, I'd like him to kind of be that sense of reason, and, like, just somebody that Simon can continue to go to support him. I think there's a lot of value in that, and having that type of relationship. And I don't think we actually have, to me, that level of equivalent elsewhere. A lot of the times we have relationships where the other person is, not to, like, put them down, but they're kind of more like a sidekick vibe, or they end up kind of coming and being a part of whatever team, who knows who is going to be a part of, like, whatever. I don't feel like we have a lot of that, like, I'm not inherently a superhero, but I can help you and, like, be a support character.
Actually, it's a good example, and it's funny because Trevor was in this movie, Shang-Chi and Katie.
This is true. Because didn't Katie start, like, also doing some...
Yeah, I mean, she was able to, like, I think she used a bow and arrow, but I don't think she's, like, a trained archer.
I don't remember, because it's been, like, a really long time since I saw that movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I mean, same, but I feel like she was able to, like, hold her own, but, like, she's not, like, to me, she's not, like, the next superhero, nor would I necessarily consider her Shang-Chi's sidekick. Like, she's able to, like, handle herself in a battle because she's a baddie and she's awesome, and I don't ever want to minimize her, but, like, do I think she's going to be at the front lines next to Shang-Chi in Doomsday? Like, probably not.
That's fair. I mean, I guess that is probably the closest we have right now in the MCU.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would be down to really see that continuation of this relationship. Like, I hope it doesn't just end here, because I think, even from what I've seen in the past 4 episodes, like, I think it's so important, especially for somebody like Simon, who also has, like, very distinctively powerful abilities. And, like, I think that does ostracize you naturally. I do also want to just bring up, and I'm not sure there's anything to talk about here other than I think it's kind of an interesting thing, is they do talk a lot about the void. And I was like, hey, we have somebody who has that.
Oh, I didn't put that together.
You didn't put that together? As soon as they said it, I was like, flashbacks.
Well, no, because it's interesting, because actually one of the things I noticed when they were doing all the promo is he actually changes that word from what's in the script. Like, I don't know what the word is that's in the script, but I know in the audition he says the word void. It's interesting because he actually changes that word. He makes an artistic decision to change that phrasing, which I thought was interesting, especially, I guess, now that you're bringing that up, especially if you bring that up, that is true. I
Yeah.
wonder, I mean, I would have to look this up, and it might be a little harder to find if it's just like a passing interaction, but like if the Void and Wonder Man ever do end up like in a battle, which I mean, in 70 years of 70, 80, I don't even know, math is hard. In all these years of comic history, like that's very, very possible.
Oh yeah. And also two very, again, strong abilitied heroes slash, well, in Sentry's case, villain.
It
So
depends on his mood.
literally depends on his mood. Yes. So there is the possibility. I caught that the second he said it, and now of course it could literally mean nothing. But when you're watching things at Marvel and you literally have a character who's like alter ego, maybe not alter ego, like other half is literally named the Void, I was like, that's a really interesting choice of words.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. I will have to see if like that means anything either now or like in Doomsday, if like they have like a weird interaction. It could just, like I said, it could just be because I think that is actually like, if I'm remembering correctly, that is word for word, line for line, what he actually says. The original Wonder Man says in the film that Simon saw as a child. So it could be like a really interesting callback if it's like something almost like directly from the comics. Like they're treating that original movie as if it was like panel for panel of recreation of the comic. And then this is Simon's version. Does that make sense?
No, but I
It is like this. Like, you know how like the version that we're seeing with Yaya and everybody in the whole cast is like their take on Wonder Man from the comics. But I wonder if like the movie is essentially like in this world, I'm considering the movie to be their source material, right? So it's almost like the original movie that Simon watches as a child is essentially like panel for panel what happens in the comics, because that's
Okay.
actually what they're
Okay.
what's like translating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I explain that better?
made more sense the second time you said that. Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll have to see, but that was something I kind of like clocked. Obviously, I also clocked, and I actually brought this up in my reactions to episode 1, that the very end of episode 1 is where Happy gets blown up by Extremis.
I literally had to Google that to be sure. I was like,
I did too, because I was like, am I making that up? No, I looked it up.
No, I was like, no. And then I was like, yes.
No, I'm not even gonna lie. I did the same thing. I was like, I have to just be sure before I say this, because that's
I
gonna be
don't
so
rewatch
embarrassing.
Iron Man 3. Like, if you know me, you know that is one movie I can never get behind, so I do not rewatch it for funsies.
When would I have even seen it last? Like,
last time we did the replay, we did that part of the replay probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, so that was the last time I probably saw Iron Man 3. So the fact that came back to me, and I was like, interesting, because again, like, we have Trevor, and like, I do think it's interesting to be back on the West Coast. I mean, obviously we've had heroes there before. Shang-Chi is out there, Ant-Man is out there, but like
Iron Man had a house out there. Like, that's why this movie takes place in LA.
But that's my point.
Iron Man 3.
But that's my point, like, to be directly back to Iron Man specifically, when you do have Trevor, who played such a pivotal role in one of those films, I do find it very interesting that we're like returning almost. I also am happy just because, listen, New York's got so much crap going on. Like, we don't really
right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I get it that New York and like LA / the West Coast in general are like probably the most populated areas, but I always wonder, I'm like, what about like Texas? Like, do we ever just consider that, like, or like Florida? Like, does anybody ever consider just like being a bad guy there?
Echo was in Oklahoma.
That's true. It was somewhere in the Midwest.
Yeah, I want to say it was Oklahoma.
Yeah,
but
one of those.
It's been
states.
a while since I've seen like somewhere in that. Yeah, to your point, like that region.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since I've seen that show. But I think that's the one that's like one of the ones that's been like most like the not on the eastern or
Well,
western,
right.
like not
Because we've
coastal.
had like big cities abroad, but they're also still big cities abroad.
Yeah, you've had DC, so like all of those
Yeah.
things happening.
Well, it's just nice to go
there.
back to the West Coast and give us a little bit of a break. Because I also feel like right now there's been such a focus on New York. Because obviously we had Daredevil, we have Spider-Man coming up. Like we just have so much that I
Even-
feel like is happening.
Even New Avengers were in New York in the old Avengers Tower.
Yeah. I don't know why I completely forgot that happened.
I was like,
yes,
wait, girl.
Well, I was like, there's other movies that I'm thinking of, and it's just not really coming to my mind right now. Yeah, that's what yes. But that's my point. Like, there is so much happening in that city right now that, like, it's nice to kind of remove ourselves and be like, okay, West Coast. And I'm like, okay. I'm hoping that maybe brings reason for them to be the West Coast Avengers and have those guys come to fruition now that we are not only gathering multiple heroes that live over there, but also just like, we have 2 Avengers teams, guys. Like, one can be New York and one can be the West Coast. Like, it's not too hard.
Yeah. I do want to bring up something that has been said quite a few times in the show that brought my calendar focused brain a lot of joy, which is we've actually got like years because Trevor keeps saying he's been sober for 13 years. And we all know Trevor was not sober in Iron Man 3, which means we're at least 2026, which is just like so helpful. Like I understand it could be like anytime after 2026, but I would love this is my dream, Marvel. Let's release movies that are set in the year that they're taking place. So if you think 13 years from 2023 is 2026, I'm going to take that at face value and say this is taking place in 2026. We're back. We are able to say the year of release is now the year of the taking place, and that just makes everything easier. It should have
at least for this project.
Yeah, but I'm like I'm praying that it is setting a precedent for future projects, because this should have been happening as of 3 years ago when we finally caught up to the MCU after Endgame. But alas, instead they were not talking about it. But every time Trevor said 13 years, I was like, yes. Thank God.
Well, I want to open up the floodgates about episode 4.
Yeah.
Now, let me say my piece quick. I'm kind of scared. That laugh just made me nervous about saying my piece. Wait.
Why?
I don't know. Now I'm nervy. Okay, I loved episode 4.
I didn't hate it. I just thought it was a bold
I think it was my favorite episode of all 4. Yeah, that's why
that is bold.
I knew when you laughed, I was like, we don't agree on this. So, hear me out, guys. When is the last time we could say a show did that? I'm not even talking Marvel. Like, pick your brain, think about a show. Like, I was trying to think of any show I've seen, and now I've been watching a lot of reality TV, so lately is probably not the best way to put it. But I mean, any show I've seen that I can remember that in the absolute middle is like, we actually have to explain something that we feel like is important to you. So we're going to take an entire episode and take you completely out of the narrative to do so.
Low-key, heated rivalry.
I thought you were saying Loki, and I was like, Loki did not do that.
No, like low-key. I
haven't seen that show though, so that I can't.
Okay, well, I have just watched it, and so for all of you who have, this isn't really spoilers. They take an episode out of the middle. I want to say it's episode 3, and they focus on a completely different couple with like little cameos of the main couple, and then they go back because the stories intertwine later in the show. And obviously, like, episode 4 explains like why all that with the doorman. That is one example that just came off the top of my head. But
okay, I mean, I haven't watched the show, so I can't say anything. I just know personally, I was like, when's the last time that happened? Also, this is a limited release, so like the fact that they took one of their 8 episodes and said this is actually surprising. Really important. Yeah, and I think I really appreciated that. I think that was something that I was like, wow, this is cool. Now, here's the other thing. I love Josh Gad. So
What a joy. I was cackling.
No, okay, you guys need to understand. I was like 12 maybe when Frozen came out. So I was like still on that cusp of like I'm into like kid things, but like I'm also in middle school, so I'm not quite like
I'm
that
not
bad.
sharing that I like kid things, but I like
Yeah.
them in secret.
Yeah, like the Minions were still like front and center for me. And when Olaf hit my screens, you guys need to understand that that was like a life-changing thing for me. I, to this day, quote Olaf constantly, specifically the Samantha bit from the second Frozen, because Olaf is me, I am Olaf, and I relate quite extensively to this snowman. And so, first and foremost, I knew Josh Gad was going to be in this. I knew Josh Gad was playing Josh Gad. But
Yeah.
I just hearing his voice, and I just think about the one interview he did where he's like, I wouldn't have given the snowman my exact voice. Like, if I could go back in time, like, he's like, because every child ever is always like, Olaf the second I'm in a room.
Triggered.
But like, no, but like, that was me. I was like, he's here. Like, and
well,
I
and then
never
he like raps the song from Olaf.
No, you don't understand because I need in summer club version so badly in my Apple Music today. Like
I know.
that, I heard the unts. I was like, oh my god, please, I need it.
Every
So-
Getting Ready playlist ever will have that song, non-negotiable.
Listen, I fear it actually has to. Like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, this is the best thing that Marvel and Disney have ever given to me at this point. And I needed this more than I thought I did. But between him and just like, I think the story itself was so interesting. Like, Loki, I could like watch a show full of stories like this, because I think sometimes we do struggle to step out of the bigger MCU and look at like She-Hulk was the first show that was like, hey, there are like regular people who aren't superheroes or villains who have these powers and have these abilities. And it's kind of hard to think about that. We're used to seeing our front and center like heroes doing what they do best. And so I really enjoyed it, and I liked it because it is so critical to the bigger story. This is really the Doorman clause is truly right now the biggest antagonist other than the DODC, because that clause single-handedly, I mean, Simon lies every single time he is there for an interview. And obviously we know that eventually has to it has to catch up to him, essentially. And so to hear the story, to watch the story, I thought that was so interesting to do. Now, let me just back up and be real with you guys. When we're recording our next episode tomorrow night, after I've watched episodes 5 through 8, and I see how this show pans out, I might be saying, why did we waste an entire episode watching about the Doorman? I might say that. And that would be a pacing problem. So, that I don't know how the show's going to end. I don't know how the next 4 episodes are going to go. But as of right now, I really liked the episode because it does really, to me, cover it, and we don't have to just hear about it. Like, we got to watch it. It also was like very meta. Like, we had Mario Lopez like doing, like, it was like very like, what is going on? But like, I really enjoyed it because, again, you got to see it and you got to see why this clause happened.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't dislike episode 4. My thoughts were like, one, I thought it was cool to pay homage to like a more minor character. Like the Doorman is, I guess he's a hero. I didn't do a ton of research. The Doorman is a character in the comics, has, similar powers. So like that was cool. To your point, like it would kind of be interesting if there was like a spin-off of like episode 4 of Wonder Man, where they do kind of like an anthology series of like adventures of like the more minor or like less mainstream characters in the comics, like, because there are the ones we all think about, right? I don't need to name them, they're in the MCU for the most part. But then there are hundreds of other characters who show up as like a random sidekick or a random villain, or they're only in a few issues and then they don't really take off, and so like they don't really get the spotlight, but they're interesting characters. And I think the Doorman is like an interesting, and I don't actually know exactly how big the Doorman is in the comics other than the fact that like I have never heard of him, which is pretty likely that he's a more minor character. So I like that we got to like spotlight him. I thought that was really cool, and it was an interesting way to do that. I will say though, like, well, I'll say the other good thing that I liked, and then I'll talk about maybe my critiques of it. The other thing that I really liked is that they ended the episode with Simon finding out about this new doorman clause.
Yeah.
And I think, to do this on the heels of episode 3, where you're learning about how he's essentially isolated himself his entire life due to these superpowers that he's trying to hide. And then you see the moment, like, it's actually heartbreaking. Like, the moment that the light leaves his eyes when he realizes that his superpowers are now going to just absolutely destroy his dream. And that was just like, and then for them to end the episode there, where he is just walking out of the sound studio. And for that to be like where we ended our watch, I was like, I'm devastated. Like, I couldn't even, one, I was tired, but two, I was like, I don't even want to record this reaction right now because that was tough. Like, that was hard. So I really liked that because I thought it did a really good job of like showing like this is how we got here, but then this is why you're seeing it. Like, this is how it has viscerally affected our main character. My only real like constructive criticism for it would be just like, maybe we could have gotten a little less. Like, I feel like there were parts that they could have maybe shortened so that we could have like continued Simon's story maybe in the last 10 minutes of the episode instead of just that last scene, so that we're not losing quite so much time. To your point, when we finish this series, I might turn around and say, actually, they left themselves more than enough time to wrap up all these storylines, and that's fine. But where we left right now, I had the actual opposite reaction of you in terms of like giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm kind of like, oh, maybe we should have shaved off like 10 more minutes to like tell the story. Maybe I'll feel differently in a few hours when I finished watching the show. Unclear. But that would kind of be like my one thought where I was like, I'm not sure by the end of this if I'm going to like that you spent this whole episode doing this.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. That was definitely a concern I had, but I was like, I have 4 more episodes to make that decision. So as of right now, as I'm watching them, I'm just like, that was cool. Like I'm not yet worried about the pace because I still have half the show to watch the rest of it. So like,
fair.
As long as it pans out, I wouldn't have an issue with it. I do think that is just a natural issue to have, that if, a lot of these shows have had pacing problems for a long time, guys.
Yeah. Although this is Destin Daniel Cretton who worked on this, and I would trust that man with pretty much any project. Like, he is rapidly rising to the level of like Ryan Coogler for me, where it's like, I don't really trust a lot of like people like in Marvel right now, but like put something in their hands and I'm like, this is probably gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I agree. I just think, we've done the 9 episode shows, we've done the 6. I mean, that's kind of been the bread and butter for a while. We've done other like oddball ones. How much was Daredevil?
I think it was also 8. Yeah, because it was, remember, 2, 4, 2 when you actually broke down the story and like what they filmed.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know it was originally supposed to be 13, which is why I was like,
it was 19. It was 13.
Yeah. Well, I know it went back to 13 at one point because that was like the Netflix. I think the Netflix ones were 13.
Netflix at 13 or 16. Yeah.
Yeah. But we've tried different tactics. They've tried different releases. They've tried all sorts of stuff. So let's be real. I think we've said there's been almost no show that we feel like has like used all their episodes the way they probably should have and told their stories the way they probably could have in those 6 or 9 or whatever amount of episodes. So I think because of that, it does make me a little weary. But again, we have half a show to cover, so I can't yet say like, was this a choice? Like I can't say that yet because I don't know. As of right now, I really liked the episode, and I also think it was kind of interesting because we left off on the callback, and then it's just like we went into a completely different story, and it was like, okay, cool, because like it also does genuinely make the threat of something happening to him or like what could go wrong for him now, like it makes it more real because you understand why they put the clause in and you understand what the point of it is. And so it's like, okay, like I understand him being worried about this now because every studio signed on to this because literally pretty much, I mean, like they can't confirm he's dead, but to most people it's like, what the heck happened to Josh Gad? Like, is he ever coming back?
Yeah. I also just want to say, like, the stylistic choice to almost film it as like a noir piece
Yeah.
was very cool. Like, that,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like, this is getting artistic. And I know a lot of like the early critics were saying, like, this is a love letter to Hollywood. So the fact that they like did it in that film noir style as like a love letter to like that early style of filmmaking, I just think there's a lot of intentionality behind that. And I thought that was brilliant as well.
Yeah. Well, it actually threw me off because when it first starts, because you see the outside of like a older theater, I was like, oh, we're going back in time. Like, I didn't look at the episode title, so I wasn't paying attention. So I was like, oh, we're going back. Like, okay, we're gonna see something. I don't know. Maybe something relating to Trevor. I don't know. And then it was like they were all in modern day clothing and like they were outside this club, and I was like, wait.
What is happening?
I'm a little confused. And then like I put together, I was like, oh, the stylistic choice of it being the black and white is primarily because we're seeing like, I don't want to even say we're seeing like a throwback of like this happening, but we're essentially seeing just like the story that's not connected to ours. So they wanted to separate it and they wanted it to be distinctively different. And I was like, okay. But it really did throw me off at first because I was like, I don't think they wore that back then when things were black and white, but like, okay,
I'm not an expert in like historical fashion, but
yeah, I think I know at least a little bit about that. And then they like pulled out phones, and I was like, okay,
now I am placed.
Yeah,
historically
I'm like,
placed.
Okay, I get it now. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I do. One thing that we haven't really dove into. Not sure how to.
One thing we haven't
that
touched.
Verb. Yeah, one thing we haven't talked about is the DODC. We've like mentioned them in passing.
Yeah.
But I think, it's been a minute since they've really been an antagonist in a show. We talked about this in our predictions episode. The last time they were truly like going head to head against one of our heroes was Ms. Marvel. And that was in 2022? So we're talking almost 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I know they were also mentioned in, actually, I'm sorry, we saw them in She-Hulk, but I think from She-Hulk till now, which She-Hulk was like also almost 3 years ago, so that doesn't really help. Girls and guys and everyone, I cannot remember what I ate for breakfast. So like,
Yeah.
this is not like things that happened years ago. No. Anyway, I say all this to say, I had kind of forgotten that their whole like their whole mission was to essentially just arrest enhanced individuals for being enhanced. They don't really have to have done anything. Like, if you think about Simon, right? He got on their radar because he had an accident in a porta potty.
Me too.
I'm so sorry that
happens to the best of us.
Because porta potties are scary places filled with lots of germs, and I hate being in them. Anyway, I'm so sorry that happened to you, Simon Williams. But that's kind of how they got on, or how he got on the DODC's radar. To our knowledge, no one got hurt. Obviously, he wasn't doing it intentionally. Like, why is this man considered like a high level threat, right? He's not a criminal. He's not doing anything bad. So I think what really stood out to me, because I had forgotten this element, was that they don't care. The DODC does not care what kind of person you are.
Correct.
You just have to be enhanced. And now there are some extremely on the nose parallels that can be made to modern day America.
Yup.
Look at the news.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna say is this. Marvel, in the last year to 18 months, has been extremely vocal. If you read between the lines, and some of it you don't have to read between the lines, some of it is the line.
It's like
there.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not seeing it, you're willfully avoiding it.
Yes.
But they are speaking with a very clear point of view about, excuse me. Sorry, friends. It's dry out here in the East Coast. It's cold.
It is. We just got like over a foot of snow, guys. We're fighting for our lives out here.
It's rough. The throat situation is not good.
Yes.
But they are very clearly sharing their thoughts on what is happening primarily from an American point of view right now in American politics. And I just have to say, kudos to Marvel, because honestly, it is extremely easy to not share these storylines and to not make art that truly is a mirror to the life that is going on in America, and to just stay silent and say, you know what, this is your escapism. They could have chosen that. They chose not to do that. They chose to center stories and to, release now in this time frame storylines that are directly paralleling, directly speaking to current events in America. And I just have to say, I'm extremely proud of Marvel for doing that right now, because I think we need to be having these conversations in every single medium and every single circle, and nobody can stay silent. And I'm really proud of them for doing this. I really am.
I don't disagree. I had something I wanted to add before you said all of that, though, which I think is that's why I want to say I don't disagree. I fully attest to that. I mean, we saw it very clearly with Daredevil. We're going to see it play out. We're continue to play out in Daredevil season 2. So I do think, these parallels need to be done. They need to be shown to us. And I think, to your point, I mean, maybe this one you can decide to kind of be like, I don't see it, but you couldn't in Daredevil.
Yeah.
You couldn't in Daredevil. Let's just put it that way. What I did want to add, though, is there's like, and I guess this is part of that conversation, there's like a weird bone chillingness to it, though, because I will say, like, to them, it's like a quota. They're like, our jail's sitting empty. We need to change that. Whoa. Yeah. Hey. What? Like,
I wonder what that's paralleling to.
But that's my point. Like, and it's very uncomfortable. And, like, you could see how Trevor, as just your run-of-a-mill, like, normal person in this show, is, like, being put under this pressure to essentially turn in Simon. And he's like, yo, like, this guy's not doing anything, though. He's not harming anybody. And you could see there's a lot of things that I think you could see, as especially Americans are playing out every day in current day America. And I think, like, even down to things like Trevor, or like that idea of, like, just reach the quota. They're all these enhanced individuals are risks and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Simon's yet to have done a single thing wrong other than blow up a porta potty. Literally, that's it so far. Hasn't
everybody blown up a porta potty once
That's
or
my
twice?
point. Like, we've all done it. No, I mean, listen, it is true. It is interesting. I mean, the DODC has always been kind of that parallel, if we're being honest. I do think of them in Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So they've played that role before. I do think it's interesting because, from a slightly different perspective, you have the new Avengers. And you have the other ominous Avengers team that Sam's apparently leading. And
ominous?
Well, like, we don't fully know who's actually on his roster. Like,
maybe ominous is not the right word to use. Mysterious.
No,
unknown.
I said ominous. I'm standing by what I said.
Look, we all know which Avengers team you're pulling for.
Bucky.
Yeah, well, okay. We all knew that.
That other team, is that better?
I guess.
Like, we all know there's at least probably going to be roughly 12 enhanced individuals that are considered Avengers. We're about to have, the people of Wakanda. We're about to have all these other enhanced individuals, including ones that are already still living in the US, like, doing their thing. And so I do kind of also sit back and I'm like, where is the line? Like, where's just the line? Maybe that's the question, where it's like, because you're not going to see them out here arresting, like, Bob.
Oh, there are so many layers to this.
I know.
I love that you brought this up, though, because I think it goes to this idea of, like, if you think about modern day terms and, like, what this is paralleling, right? They're never going to arrest a celebrity. They're never going to do it. They're protected by their celebrity. They're protected by their fame, because the public outcry that would happen if you did that to a celebrity. I'm having trouble thinking of a good example at the moment.
I wonder if that's partially why they're keeping them out of acting.
Ooh, interesting.
They're keeping them out of the business because you're not going to be able to arrest an enhanced being if they're famous.
Yeah. I mean, because that could be essentially a pipeline to safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's very possible. It also could just be the studios being biased against.
I mean, I agree, but
it's
I
like
would.
that's
I'm sure if we really looked back at how that clause came in, I'm sure I wouldn't be shocked to see the DODC being like, "Yeah, as you could see, enhanced individuals, they're just such a threat."
Oh, for sure. For sure. My point being, like, I think there's also a metaphor there for like the studios being inherently biased as well. Because you had one accident, right? And I firmly believe that there are, like, the idea of trying to make something better so that someone else doesn't get hurt isn't inherently a bad thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
putting in safety protocols because there was an accident on set, that's not a negative thing. I think that's great. People should be safe at work. But to completely disregard, block out an entire class of people because one enhanced individual had an accident and lost control of their powers, I mean, that's maybe like an oversized reaction,
yeah,
right? So you're right. Like, that could definitely be the DODC's way of saying, like, we're gonna make it hard, like, and they're just starting with acting, but maybe we make it hard for enhanced individuals to do anything, right? So, like, maybe it starts with the studios and you can't act, but then, like, next time it's like, oh well, you can't work in construction because you could cause an accident at a construction site, so now
yep,
they're barred from that. Oh, and you can't work in customer service because you can't be around people because you're a danger to the public, so now they're barred from like, it's a very slippery slope when you start to bar entire classes of people from specific jobs. Then you find that they're not able to excuse me, they're not able to, like, build a livelihood for themselves and be able to provide for themselves. So now they're dealing with everything that comes along with not being able to do that. They're risking homelessness, they're risking hunger. Like, now you've made them, more vulnerable, even because
yeah,
they're potentially having to, one, they're on the streets, potentially they're now having to use their powers to, commit crimes just to survive. Maybe they're stealing food because they can't put food on their own table because they can't get a job. Now you have your justification for them being a criminal and you can arrest them even though they technically, to their laws, don't need it. So, like, that is just like a very slippery slope that we've started
yes,
here. And what seems like this, like, clause for, the safety of everyone involved, which some of that may be true to some extent, but at the other, like, if you look at it a little more cynically, it's like, well, actually, you just took one incident and made it about an entire class of people because one guy got a little drunk one day and had an accident. Like, all right,
yep.
think about where this goes from here, especially when you have an agency like the DODC who so clearly has a negative point of view.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's why it's just so very interesting to me, just the way that this is set up, which is why I do think episode 4 is so important to have watched and understood, because I think there are layers to it beyond just the studios probably making the decision they made.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to, like, continue watching this show. I know I've said that a million times, but, like, I feel like everything we, like, analyze and break apart, whether it's, Simon and his learning to come to terms with himself or the politics around the DODC, I think all of that, I'm so excited to see how it evolves and what new nuances are introduced or unveiled as we go through these last 4 episodes, because this show, I think, kind of like a Falcon and the Winter Soldier, has so many, or Daredevil, is another good example that we just brought up, has so many, like, themes and undertones, that some of which are more obvious than others and some of which you
Yeah.
kind of have to read between the lines, but they're trying to make a point, they're trying to tell you something. And those are my favorite things to, like, analyze. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good, like, woo woo, like, save the day, like, show, and but you can do that while also having a conversation. I'm looking at the Thunderbolts, and so, like, as well, it's a good example. Those are my favorite projects to talk about with Marvel, because I think, I don't know, like, I love uncovering those deeper themes. It's the person who loved English class in me and who doesn't get to do that anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I think it lends itself to having bigger conversations, and I think that's always something that's the point of art in any form, at its rawest form, regardless of it's a book, a story, a poem, a show, a movie. It doesn't matter. A painting. I mean, I think art in all ways is meant to, like, it's meant to say something. And obviously,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes it's a little more direct than others. Sometimes it's up to the person who what is it, the eye of the beholder or whatever. Like, you know, sometimes it's up to our own thoughts, but I do think sometimes it's a little bit more clear. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And I do enjoy, I think that's why we like Captain America, like the first, well, not to be like we don't like Sam, but like specifically, you know, Chris Evans' storyline and his arc, because I think a lot of his stories, and Sam's tried, but unfortunately, you know, the whole Hulk storyline just like,
Literally
you know,
ate anything Sam's storyline was
literally
trying
came
to
in
say.
and like, yes, absolutely obliterated whatever
Yeeted that
else they were trying to do.
storyline.
Yes. But like, I think that's why we're such big fans of Chris. I mean, obviously I'm sure there's other reasons, but like that his portrayal and the stories he showed throughout his movies and even in the Avengers, I think it's one of those that you could sit down and you really think. And you
Yeah.
really can talk about some of these deeper themes.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know about you, Kate, but I think I've covered mainly what I wanted to hit for 1 through 4. Like we've said 1,000 times, we're pumped to finish this show. I hope that I hope that it endears in us this level of excitement when we are done with the back half, because
let's hope.
When was the last time we were this animated during a review of something? I can't even tell you.
Well, Fantastic Four.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, was I ever not going to be animated about something that Pedro Pascal was in? I mean, y'all have hopefully been with us long enough to know that.
Yeah.
But we are going to call it for this episode because I personally want to go watch the rest of the episodes. You can make sure that you're following on your podcast platform of choice so that you are keeping up with us as we hit the back half and get into future content, knowing that Daredevil is on the way. We have a release date for that, which is super exciting. Check out below in our show notes. You can find the link to our website, which has things like the podcast calendar, which is super helpful, and also our Buy Me a Coffee if you're so inclined to support the show.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials, which are also linked in the show notes down below. And as we mentioned, our next episode, which will be coming on the heels of this one, will also be a video episode covering Wonder Man episodes 5 through 8. So make sure you guys are joining us again as we talk about the back half of the show. And as always, Marvel just blew your mind, so let's talk about it.